So in this video, I wanted to just share with you a couple of things related to stages that are pretty natural in any advocacy process. And so without knowing this, it would be easy to get frustrated and to think that you're not making any kind of progress because things are not changing as fast as you want them to change. So I find it's helpful to go over and to know these know these stages. And so I'm just going to go over what the 7 stages are and kind of how I see it playing out for different groups. So the first stage is no involvement. And so just, pretty much from that perspective, you understand that either families or individuals are being excluded, often blamed and silenced in that stage. And professionals are the ones who are leading everything and hold all the power. So obviously we want to make some changes from that. That's the first stage. The second stage is tokenism. So to get from this stage to the other, there's probably been a lot of advocates and people sharing and sort of pushing and saying, listen to me, listen to me. You need to have my voice at the table. Unfortunately, in the tokenism stage, it is basically symbolic, right? So what typically happens is that there is a person at the table. So let's say if there's 20 people in the room, there will be one parent or one person with lived experience that is there. Also, what we see at that stage is that there hasn't been any training. So the professionals who are in the room are not understanding the history or importance of why they need to listen to those voices of the groups that are being, actually being served. So that's important. The third stage is called the pedestal stage. This is when people have finally been elevated. And what often happens here is that is a sudden change that takes place. And sometimes with that pedestal stage, it's actually too much. So, and I've seen this happen in systems very often. So you've had voices who've been pushing and pushing and pushing and saying, I should be at the table. And then what they do is they just give it all to you. They say, okay, you lead everything. And it's not really possible for a system to be run by one voice. That's the whole point, is that we need to make sure that you still have everybody's voices there, but they're all centered on the values that are established by the groups that have been most marginalized. So one of the things that we see in the pedestal stage, though, is that professionals tend to fear disagreement, and that the advocates then find themselves struggling to bring others along. So there's often a history of a lot of sort of infighting or just disagreement, pains, a lot of hurt feelings all across the board. This is actually natural, because the next stage that we get into from there is called storming. Okay, so this is when the conflicts are arising, often because you've seen the groups in the pedestal stage, they're giving the ability to do everything and to lead everything, and the system isn't necessarily all that much better. And this is where we have to start to work through conflict. So at this point, we'll have some new voices that are challenging the old voices. Systems will often be very resistant to change, but this tension is absolutely necessary, and it actually helps everyone to grow. As the next stage evolves, right, so we've gone through a lot of push and pull, it's called apathy. This is where we have burnout that sets in. So advocates at this point are exhausted. And I don't know about you, but that is something I see a lot right now. People have been pushing and saying, trying to get people engaged and doing all this work. And they are you know what? I'm burned out. And so systems at this point tend to deprioritize the family or the peer involvement, and progress tends to stall. I want to just at this moment kind of put a pause in here and say, it is okay that we hit this stage. All right, we're going to have burnout can happen. Progress might stall. It doesn't mean that we're going to have to stay there. Okay, so the 6th stage is when we get to advanced tokenism. So inclusion is now going to become more routine, but there is still a need to do healing from past conflicts. That means that the relationships really have to go through a process of repair. We have to do some work where we acknowledge the things that didn't go well. We have to acknowledge that we're here now, and we have to talk about how we're going to, move forward. And what typically happens at this point is that people feel like it's very slow. Okay, we've been at this for so long; it's so slow. Totally understand. With that, though, the last stage, which is where we're really trying to get to, is integrated inclusion. And that is our goal. That is when families and individuals are not just included, they're leading. And what I really want to lift up here is that you know that you're leading because you are shaping policy, you're shaping research, you're shaping the services and evaluation. You're doing everything, and it is in a process in which everybody is included. So we're not just talking about one aspect of a program or a system that is a focus. I see this a lot, unfortunately, in the peer work where there has been a focus on just one type of service. We haven't also looked at policies and research and how there can be work in all kinds of different settings. So this is what we're actually trying to work toward at this point. So I want to just close this up really quickly and say that, in all of these movements, and it's important that we find ways to talk about what does respect look like? How can we operate in ways which are not authoritarian? One of the steps that we can all do better with is getting rid of jargon. And find ways to have training and leadership opportunities for everybody at every level. We can also be much more intentional about talking about what it means to be truly inclusive, to have a culture of belonging, to embrace and create spaces that are safe and courageous, which is what I would add in this work, and building in appreciation or celebrating small wins all along the way. And what this is going to do is make sure that we have a seat at the table that is more than just symbolic. So I hope that this short video has been helpful. If there are people that you know who are in the movement, it may be helpful to know that these are the stages that we can all expect to go through, and what our goal is in terms of what we're trying to move toward and how we can get through these stages, for example, of being very apathetic and, just sort of the natural burnout, and how we can get past, or at least start to embrace that maybe we're in a stage of advanced tokenism and there's some healing that we need to do before we can get to that last stage, which is our main goal of actually leading and shaping every layer of care that people are engaged in. So thank you for watching. I hope this resonates with you. Please share it with someone who needs to hear it.